Now we'll apply the concept of efficiency that we've already introduced to our model of supply and demand. In the model of supply and demand, consumers and producers are necessarily made better off through trade. That's because both consumers and producers behave rationally and agree to trade only if the benefit to them is larger than the cost. We define the efficient or socially optimal point in this model as the outcome that results in the highest possible total surplus. Or the greatest benefit to all groups within society. When markets are perfectly competitive, total surplus is maximized at the market equilibrium. In other words, everyone who can potentially benefit from trading is doing so. So we end up with the highest possible total surplus. Deadweight loss is a concept that we use to measure losses in efficiency occurring when the market is not at equilibrium or not at the socially optimal outcome. Deadweight loss is just simply the amount of surplus or the benefit that we're missing out on. To see how that applies practically to the previous example, we'll think about deadweight loss that would occur if there were only 2 sandwiches for sale. The socially optimal outcome here is to have 6 trades, 6 sandwiches for sale, so that we get benefit to all consumers, all 6 consumers, and we don't have any sandwiches left over. So the socially optimal quantity in this example was 6. Now, what happens if instead only 2 sandwiches are available for sale? If there are only 2 sandwiches for sale, only 2 of these customers will be able to buy sandwiches. We're going to operate under the most generous assumptions and assume that the people who really value those sandwiches the most, Anne and Bernie, they're the ones who will be able to buy those 2 sandwiches. So in that case, our total surplus would be 5 for Anne and 4 for Bernie, giving us $9 in total surplus. Now you'll notice here that I've used total surplus interchangeably with consumer surplus. That's because I've just ignored the producer side in this first example so that we can get a feel for the meaning behind the concepts as we introduce them. All right, so if there are only 2 sandwiches for sale, the highest amount of surplus we could have would be $9. That's obviously less than the surplus that we had with 6 sandwiches, which was the socially optimal outcome. And our deadweight loss is the difference. Deadweight loss is how much surplus could we have, but we're missing because the market is not at the socially optimal outcome, in this case, 6 sandwiches. And we can calculate that by taking the difference between total surplus at the socially optimal outcome and total surplus where we are. So you can see that having only 2 sandwiches for sale results in a decrease in surplus of $6. That's what we call our deadweight loss. And we'll calculate this in a similar way in future examples.